When a cozy RV sparks war with the HOA's queen bee, will one determined homeowner transform her dream into a community revolution or face total defeat? The sun crested over the horizon, its golden rays spilling warmth into my garden, as I settled into my well-worn wicker chair with a steaming cup of coffee cradled between my hands. It felt like the perfect Sunday. The birds were serenading the morning, and the scent of fresh blooms mingled delightfully with the rich aroma of the brew warming my spirit. My gaze wandered to my beloved RV, parked beside the flower beds where I had personally nurtured tulips and daisies. To me, it was more than just a vehicle. It represented freedom, adventure, and a life untethered from mundane routine. I could almost see the road stretching out before me, promising sunsets and horizons unknown. But that serenity shattered like glass when an unmistakably thunderous voice broke through the morning air. "Is that a mobile junkyard I see?" Marjorie Wexler bellowed, her tone sharp enough to cut through the gentle sounds of nature. I blinked in disbelief. There she stood like a storm cloud, her features stern and inhospitable, sharp cheekbones framing a mouth that seemed perpetually twisted into a frown. The self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, she had a reputation for maintaining strict adherence to the community rules, weaponizing them as she roamed the neighborhood in search of transgressions. I knew she had set her sights on my RV and my small outdoor lounge, a cozy haven I had crafted from patio lights, colorful cushions, and rustic tables. "You can't be serious, Marjorie," I protested, rising defensively from my chair as my heart began to race. The air buzzed with tension as I stepped closer, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks while I mentally prepared myself for this confrontation. "This is my property, and I've poured love and care into turning that RV into a slice of paradise, not a violation of our community's standards." Her eyes narrowed, reacting as if I had just blasphemed against the HOA's sacred commandments. "Oh, please," she scoffed, adopting her favorite condescending tone. "This isn't just any neighborhood. It's a haven of proper ethics, and your little campsite is dragging our reputation down into the gutter. What kind of example do you think you're setting?" Her words hit hard, and I felt an involuntary tremor of defiance rising within me. She stood there, hands planted firmly on her hips, a general surveying her troops, ready to lay waste to my ideas with the sharpness of her tongue. The rage bubbling underneath my skin churned, pushed by that all-too-familiar annoyance I had with her imperative nature. Not only was my RV a symbol of adventure, but my makeshift lounge had turned into an extension of my own creativity so full of life and comfort that it openly contradicted the sterile dullness she imposed on this neighborhood. The idea of tearing it down wasn't even a consideration. No, I refused to submit to her oppression. I wanted to transform that RV idea into something breathtaking, a luxury guest suite that the entire neighborhood would envy. "If you don't move that RV, I'll have no choice but to file a complaint. We have rules for a reason," Marjorie pressed, her voice growing louder, more intense, as if she reveled in the power of her authority. I could almost see her scrabbling around in her mind, plotting out my demise on the association's agenda for next week, the insatiable thirst for control pouring through her every word. I needed a strategy. I had two options: capitulate and allow her to ugly my retreat, or escalate this battle with creativity. As I sank deeper into thoughts, inspiration struck like lightning. I would throw a weekend gathering, inviting friends and neighbors over to tour my RV and witness my lounge's charm. They wouldn't just see the vehicle I envisioned, transforming it into something luxurious, outfitting it with adorable lights, cozy drapery, stranded fairy lights, and perhaps even small potted plants. This could prove my point. The RV wasn't just a heap of tires and metal. It could be an experience that enhanced our community rather than tarnished it. "I'll take my chances, Marjorie," I declared firmly, squaring my shoulders to convey my resolve. My heart raced, not with fear but with excitement, and a sense of daring that ignited a spark of rebellion. I would show her what truth could do in the face of intimidation. Maybe it was time to embrace my creativity and with it build a community that appreciated individual expression over rigid conformity. The more I thought about it, the more possibilities unfurled before me, each more promising than the last. Her glare seemed to pierce through me, as if she could sense my defiance, but I stood tall. "I think you'll find my guests will fill this place with love and laughter," I added with a hint of a smile, daring to envision the joy that would bring. I could practically taste the victory. With that, I pivoted back toward my cozy retreat, determined to transform my RV into something majestic enough to shine a light directly into Marjorie's cold, unyielding approach to life. As I resumed my place in my chair, I took another sip of my coffee, fueled now not only by caffeine, but by a thrill of purpose. Let her file a complaint. I had a better plan. Marjorie would soon see my vision, whether she wanted to or not. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting golden streaks through my open windows. And as I stood inside the RV, a wild spark of inspiration surged through me. The clean dullness of linoleum flooring clashed with the dreams blooming in my mind. I leaned down and with resolute determination grabbed the edge of the worn vinyl. In a swift motion, I tore it up, tossing the remnants aside like yesterday's news. Today would mark the beginning of a transformation, not just of the RV, but of my very defiance against Marjorie. I could almost hear Marjorie's disdainful scoff in the back of my mind, but the thought of that only fueled my zeal. I raced through my ideas. What would it take to craft this RV into an extraordinary guest suite? I envisioned polished hardwood floors, making the space feel warm and inviting. A few hours later, the dim light overhead had transformed into a luminous glow as I hung delicate chandeliers from its ceiling, their crystals dangling like prisms catching the sunlight. Every swing of the hammer echoed with rebellious purpose. I was reviving not just the RV but my spirit. By dusk, the shimmering white paint was finally completed, giving the RV a fresh facade that looked like it had just rolled out of a designer showcase. It gleamed at the end of my driveway, beckoning visitors a lovely contradiction to Marjorie's stale standards. I felt proud as I stepped back, hands resting on my hips as I admired my handiwork in the fading light, breathing in the invisible energy buzzing around my makeshift sanctuary. Encouraged by my vision, I began inviting friends over to assist. Almost magically, they arrived like a colorful whirlwind, bringing with them vintage furniture, potted plants, and a retro record player, which became the heart of our gatherings. Weekend afternoons filled with laughter and eclectic tunes turned the RV into a bustling workshop of creativity where memories were crafted along with my stylish renovations. It felt like a golden age, the playful chaos standing in stark contrast to Marjorie's harsh criticisms echoing in the distance. "Look at this outrageous disruption!" I could almost hear her voice rallying her cronies from across the street. The more I worked, the more her displeasure festered like a sore. I witnessed her subtle prowling throughout the neighborhood, her eyes narrowing at every new addition to my project. Each plant I placed outside became another reason for her to twist her mouth into a furious scowl. The neighborhood was starting to buzz. Passing whispers igniting from house to house. My ambitious project had become the talk of the block. I could feel the tension loom thicker in the air. A few neighbors appeared supportive. They'd stop by, admiring the burgeoning beauty of my guest suite, but her faction grew stubbornly rooted, hinging their opinion on her authoritative voice. "That RV is an eyesore." They'd echo as they shuffled along, shrouded in a haze of judgment. Their skepticism hung over me like a storm cloud, yet I remained resolute. This was my dream, taking shape beneath the weight of their disdain. I would stand for my creativity against every disapproving glare thrust in my direction. With every month gone by, I also observed the changes in my neighborhood. My renovation attracted a mix of curiosity and scorn, each side waging war silently with raised eyebrows and whispered judgments. But while I labored to beautify my surroundings, Marjorie rallied her allies, circling my RV like vultures sensing a feast. They were fortifying their ideological barricade against my vibrant spirit. Could they possibly quell this blooming life? The neighborhood's transformation seemed inevitable as my RV became a focal point, evolving into something grand and chic. Marjorie's insistent negativity seemed destined to collide headfirst with my vibrant plan. It was a tension as palpable as the scent of fresh paint layering my project. Even her allies began to look worried, torn between what I was creating and the rigidity she demanded. The lines between ridicule and admiration blurred under the weight of both factions, and I knew I was stirring something beneath the surface. Though the RV stood invitingly, I recognized the uncomfortable shift in the air, the subtle alarm bells ringing in the minds of those too afraid to embrace my vision. I couldn't help but feel I was building something greater. Each flower planted around the NPR was a sign of rebellion. With every hour spent crafting, I ventured deeper into unknown territory, where rebellion twinkled alongside inspiration. Finally, as I finished the last touches to the RV that night, I allowed myself to imagine what could come next. I had morphed my dependence on Marjorie's approval into a desire for celebration. I wasn't just creating an RV, I was igniting a community to reflect on its deepest desires for aesthetic freedom. With my heart swelling, I leaned against the side of the RV, remembering that no matter the whispers or the criticisms that swirled around me, my project was about more than just an outlawed RV. It was about conquering fear and embracing a life where adventure bathed in creativity could inspire others, even in the darkest chapters. The late afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm orange glow that highlighted the delicate blooms I had planted around the RV, and yet, the beauty of the moment felt overshadowed by the storm brewing within the walls of my community. Each day, I pushed against the encroaching darkness brought on by Marjorie Wexler's relentless disdain, her sharp glares piercing the hopeful atmosphere I had created. My heart raced every time I walked outside, knowing I was stepping onto a battlefield adorned with flowers and twinkling lights. In an effort to drown out her bitterness, I embraced the idea of my RV serving as a sanctuary, a luxury guest suite that could welcome both friends and like minds. With every vibrant bloom I arranged, I felt a growing surge of defiance, yet I trembled at the thought of the brewing conflict. Night after night, Marjorie's nagging voice echoed in my mind, her stern complaints blanketing my hard-earned sanctuary with a stifling veil of negativity. She was relentless, knocking on doors, rallying neighbors against what she deemed an eyesore, often fabricating first-hand accounts of how my beloved RV was single-handedly driving down property values. What fueled her bitterness, I wondered? Was it jealousy, fear, or an innate need to control? My hands trembled as I pushed back against the swell of her dominance, crafting a vibrant walkway adorned with sweet-smelling flowers and whimsical lights that flickered joyfully in the encroaching darkness, defying the absurdity of her criticisms. But the ugliness began to find a new route into my life. One afternoon, while I was busy arranging potted herbsome for the guests I hoped to host, a neighbor, Sarah, approached with a nervous expression, her voice barely a whisper as she relayed the rumors swirling about my little venture. Apparently, a complaint had been filed with the HOA regarding my excessive decor. The very essence of my creativity suddenly felt like the noose tightening around my neck, and I could imagine Marjorie's cruel smirk as she silently celebrated the impending threat. It was a blow I hadn't anticipated, one that forced me to confront the possibility that maybe I'd pushed too far this time amid the blooming beauty of my defiance. A few days later, in the early morning hours, I sat at my kitchen table, the gentle symphony of chirping birds outside faltering against the weight of my world crumbling around me. My lawyer called, his voice laced with concern, as he informed me of the cease and desist letter the HOA was preparing to send. I clutched the coffee mug in my hands, feeling its warmth seep into my skin, but the comfort paled against the cold reality of my options. As the words tumbled from his mouth, I wrestled with a swirling tide of anger and doubt. Did I dare challenge the authority of the HOA, risking everything I had poured into this project, or should I bow down and yield to Marjorie's suffocating demands? It felt like a hand gripped my throat, suffocating my burgeoning spirit, leaving behind only a flicker of resolve that whispered insistently in my mind, "Fight!" Fueled by the fire simmering in my veins, I dug deep within myself. The thought of giving up made me sick. It did not align with the fierce spirit I had ignited when I first embarked on this project. Inspiration and determination replaced the fear that threatened to engulf me as I envisioned the RV transforming into the focal point of our community. I began brainstorming ways to take my stand, to not only fight back against the absurdities that had invaded my life, but also to convey a message of hope and beauty. What if I hosted a neighborhood open house at the RV? Would current supporters come out and showcase their solidarity? Could I transform the RV's undeniable charm into a beacon of creativity that might sway even Marjorie's staunchest allies? As I pondered these possibilities, I mapped out a plan. Drawing on my recent encounters, I could coordinate an evening filled with laughter, delicious food, and music. I'd showcase the luxurious features of the RV, turning it into a fitting invitation for my neighbors to explore the results of my hard work. Perhaps it wouldn't just be my RV that I would be encouraging them to embrace, but rather a new way of thinking, one that would allow creativity to thrive alongside the restrictive HOA rules. My heart raced at the thought. This could be my best chance to redefine the narrative surrounding my work and highlight the joy I had poured into my project. Thunder rumbled overhead, signaling a brewing storm, yet it eerily mirrored the boiling tension escalating among the community. I felt the weight of my endeavor like a tidal wave that threatened to crash down, only further igniting my fervor to move forward with my plan. It was now or never. I could reshape not just the sidewalk beneath my feet, but the very foundation of our community, as I resolved to stand up for what I had created. Each passing hour before my big event felt like a countdown to a grand showdown, the picturesque lights lining the RV acting as harbingers of hope rather than the stigma Marjorie wanted them to endure. The plot had thickened, and I was determined to navigate this storm with flowers in hand, lights aglow, and a fierce heart beating defiantly. Curiosity danced at the edge of my thoughts as I wondered whether Marjorie could resist stepping into the light that I was gradually inviting back into our community. The vibrant colors I had surrounded myself with were more than just decor. They were a blooming legacy, a vivid testament to the transformative power of will against the icy grip of negativity. What would unfold at my open house, I couldn't predict, but as I prepared for what felt like a monumental shift, I embraced the risk entangled with my unwavering vision. After all, it was time to let my RV speak louder than the bitter murmurs against it. The dusk crept in as shadows lengthened across our neighborhood, the gray sky smeared with streaks of purple and orange. I stood on my front porch, trying to temper the surge of anxiety swelling in my chest as I watched neighbors filter into the community center for the meeting that had been orchestrated by Marjorie herself. Even from a distance, I could see her standing proudly, her arms crossed over her chest, as if her mere presence could corral us all into submission. I should have felt emboldened by the work I'd done turning my RV into a luxurious guest suite, but the weight of her looming threats had cast a pall that morphed my excitement into dread. "You are inviting chaos into our haven," she declared, her voice ringing through the hall as the meeting began. Each time Marjorie spoke, her conviction fell over us like a heavy net, ensnaring minds and souls. I could see some neighbors nodding, eyes wide with fear as they fidgeted, confusion seeping through their sheepish grins. It was a scene straight out of a drama, and I was the unwilling protagonist, trapped in the act of a ghastly play that unfolded in front of me. It was hard to accept how quickly my imagined allies turned on me, fellow homeowners who I thought shared my desire for creativity and freedom. When it came down to it, even they were no match for Marjorie's authority. I felt a mix of rage and betrayal as I heard them murmur against my venture. "What if her RV sets a precedent?" someone hissed. "What will the value of our homes be then?" I wanted to scream that my RV wasn't an eyesore. It was a sanctuary, a testament to both artistry and the possibility that we could all bend the rules a little to enrich our lives. Instead, I stood there choking on my words, anger boiling inside me, contemplating the abrupt unraveling of my hopes. As accusations flew, I soon realized the meeting had turned into an impromptu kangaroo court, with Marjorie presiding as judge, jury, and executioner. Each time I attempted to interject, my voice faltered against her relentless commentary, drowning me in a sea of deference to her authority. "She's trespassed against the neighborhood," Marjorie raged. "I won't let this sort of chaos ruin our community." A wave of anxiety washed over me. It felt as if the walls of the community center were closing in, encasing me in a glass cage, while Marjorie stoked the flames of resentment among my neighbors. Caught in this whirlwind of falsehoods and backhanded compliments, I stood alone, feeling an unwelcome flicker of despair, the air heavy with their judgment. But amidst the tumult, amidst the eyes glaring back at me, I felt something bold unfurl within, an inner spark that commanded my full attention. This struggle was no longer merely about defending my RV. It was about challenging the entire notion of how we defined our community. I took a deep breath, imagining the vibrant gardens I had created, the laughter that echoed around the RV during impromptu gatherings with friends. Inspiration burst forth as I realized that the exact thing I was so afraid of being an outlier could be my greatest weapon. I could reshape their views and remind them of the essence of community. Instead of hiding behind my defensive wall, it was time to step boldly into the light. Just then, a voice bubbled up inside me, joining the invocations of my creativity and passion, urging me to propose a community event. Why not host an open house? An evening where everyone could come, experience the beauty of my luxury RV suite firsthand, taste the delicious foods I would prepare, and more importantly, rediscover this community's spirit of creativity and collaboration. I envisioned a gathering that might blur the lines of fear, shifting perspectives among my neighbors, and reminding them that our lives could be vibrant and multifaceted. It felt natural to put myself out there as an experiment, forcing everyone in that room to confront their biases while showcasing hope in a little slice of disobedience. Even Marjorie would have to reckon with the power of imagination and passion. By the end of this evening, I could envision the whispering winds of change sweeping through the neighborhood, creating the foundation for a new tradition. If my resolve was contagious enough, perhaps we could liberate ourselves from the chains of old restrictions and rekindle our community's colors. With renewed vigor, I took in the harsh glints of Marjorie's distrustful eyes and rallied my thoughts, courage igniting the embers of rebellion within me. I was ready. This was my moment to teach the community not just to accept a different view, but to embrace it fully. Letting go of despair, I raised my hand, squaring my shoulders, and met Marjorie's gaze directly, emboldened by my newfound clarity and the dreams that shimmered just beyond the confines of this meeting. Finally, the day of reckoning arrives, and the sun hangs low in the late afternoon sky, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. Excitement buzzes in the air as I finish the final touches on my remodeled RV, transforming it into an inviting guest suite. I've set up warm lighting and soft music wafting from within, and the inviting aroma of fresh-baked cookies fills the air, inviting neighbors to step inside and experience the fruits of my labor. I can't help but feel a rush of adrenaline as the time draws closer for the open house event, remembering all the hard work, sleepless nights, and relentless defiance it took to get to this moment. As I peer out my front window, I see my friends and a few supportive neighbors trickling in, armed with platters of food and cheer to bolster this community event. Their enthusiasm wraps around me like a comforting blanket, reminding me why I fought so hard against the Homeowners Association's cold grip. Marjorie Wexler stands at the edge of my property with her characteristic stoic expression, though I can see a flicker of curiosity in her sharp eyes. I brace myself for the tidal wave of emotions that will unfold tonight. Will my neighbors finally understand my vision, or will fear still tighten its grip around their hearts? I take a deep breath and step outside, welcoming my guests with open arms and a warm smile. As neighbors step into the RV, their expressions morph from skepticism to disbelief, then delight as they explore my creation. With each tour, I point out the little touches that heavily contrast Marjorie's accusations of chaos. The polished hardwood floors glinting under soft lights, the vintage-inspired couch, hand-selected art pieces, and the cozy reading nook tell a story of not just aesthetic, but of family and shared experiences. Almost as if I can feel Marjorie's confidence start to wane, as the sounds of laughter and lively chatter drift on the breeze. Just as I'm soaking in the atmosphere, I catch a glimpse of Marjorie making her way toward the RV. A familiar wave of anxiety crashes over me, but my neighbors are blissfully engrossed in their newfound love for the space. The open-door policy allows for easy participation, crafting an ambiance of acceptance rather than the hostility I once felt. When Marjorie finally steps inside, she is met not with scowls or cold shoulders, but with the infectious laughter of a child who just discovered a secret room filled with treasures. My heart races as I watch, wondering if the experience might crack the hard shell she has built over the years. Above the hum of excitement, I hear snippets of amazed voices and realization. The conception of an RV serving the community beyond crude errands could be a shared dream. A few neighbors rave. Imagine if we outfitted more RVs like this to host visiting family or friends. It's a light bulb moment, and I feel a swell of pride and hope erupting within me. With my voice rising above the chatter, I begin sharing my vision of turning more RVs into luxury spaces for families and travelers looking for an authentic local experience. Every enthusiastic nod from my neighbors strengthens my belief that this little open house could awaken the spirit of togetherness in us all and reforge the bonds of community. Marjorie stands, momentarily stunned, her stern demeanor slipping as rows of delighted faces surround her. I can see her battling an inner storm, caught between her ingrained duties as HOA enforcer and the smattering of joy blossoming around her. She watches as families bounce around the RV, engaging with each other and embracing our shared love for creativity and individuality. The clash of past and possibility creates an electric charge in the surrounding air, and I can practically feel the resistance in the room begin to melt. As the sun dips beneath the horizon, the atmosphere shifts from apprehension to exhilaration. My supporters rally around the idea of bringing an official proposal to the HOA, revealing their excitement to introduce a new addition to the neighborhood bylaws that allows RV guest suites. In that moment, I realize that tonight is not just about my RV. It's about everyone reclaiming their freedom, about families stepping into the future of what we envisioned our homes to be. The taste of triumph fills the air, a wave powerful enough that it carries even Marjorie along, as her frown falters amidst the celebratory cheers. As the evening unfolds, I watch Marjorie struggle to maintain her rigid stance against the landscape of acceptance washing over us. By the time the last guest leaves, I take a moment to stand back and soak it all in, feeling incredible satisfaction at what can be accomplished through resilience and courage. Marjorie, begrudgingly, finally concedes defeat. She collects her notes, obviously reconsidering her future arguments against RVs in our tasteful community while engaging in amiable conversation with other neighbors. My RV, once a symbol of strife, now stands proudly as a beacon of change-proof that through creativity and companionship, we can redefine community. Looking at my transformed space, I know I have not just won for myself, but for every resident craving freedom within their own home. It feels like the end of a chaotic chapter, but more than anything, it marks the beginning of a vibrant, unified future for us all, one where we learn to embrace the unique vibes each member brings to our community. The victory is sweeter now that we have collectively shifted our perspectives and opened the door to endless possibilities.